Welcome, everyone. March 9th, ASCC meeting. We had an afternoon meeting at Football Valley Ranch, which was really helpful, you guys. It was good to see that, all that. And so thank you for that. And now we're going to go to, and then we have another project after that. So you guys are up first.
Phone on. All right, and now we're going to open it up for, you're going to take roll call.
Yeah, so roll call. Commissioner Vaughn? Here. Commissioner War?
Here.
Vice Chair Dixon?
Here.
Chair Breen?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, and so now we'll move to oral communications, which is, we can hear items that are not on the agenda tonight, but we can't take any action. Is there anyone in the schoolhouse who is here to speak? And if not, is there anyone online?
I don't see anyone online, but if you're online, please use the raise hand feature.
All right, I assume there's no one online. And so let's move on to our first item of discussion. Do you guys, you're going to take it at the table, but when it's time for you guys to come and present, yes, all right, good. Thank you. Will you give us a presentation? My pen of yours.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Paul Keitle-Hinsey, consultant planner with the town. And I'll be presenting this first item for you tonight, which is an architectural review and site development permit for pool renovations, a pool support building, and associated site improvements at 1 Indian Crossing. The property is located in the Portola Valley Ranch Planned Unit Development. It is a common area parcel, and it is surrounded by single-family residential on the north and east. And it runs Alpine Road and Valley Oak. Its primary frontage off of Indian Crossing. Shown here is an existing demolition site plan. The primary area of work is shown in this partial site plan. It's in the rear of the existing ranch house, and it involves the 2 pools, the lap pool and then the leisure pool, the landscape area, the deck in the center, as well as an existing.
Could you speak up a little bit, please?
Apologies about that. It involves the 2 lap pools, an existing shed structure, the deck in the center, and some of these surrounding structures include the existing fitness center, the pool equipment room, the schoolhouse, and some existing site fencing, as well as tennis courts to the south. And shown here is the proposed site plan, which includes, again, the main areas of work involved are the 2 pool areas in the rear yard, the deck area in the center. There's an existing building, a shed structure near the lap pool, where there is 1 new proposed structure to be replacing that, and that will be replaced with just a minor increase in footprint. And throughout the site, there are proposed improvements to accessibility to comply with building code, as well as new fencing. Move on to the elevations of the 1 new structure on the property as proposed. This is the new pool support building. You can see on the east and west elevations, there is an entry to an equipment room and new restrooms. The structure also has chemical storage rooms and outdoor showers. That's north and south. All proposed colors and materials of the new pool support building, as well as the site work, comply with the town's design guidelines, including light reflectivity. On the left-hand side, you'll find the earth tone pool support finishes, as well as the concrete paving and retaining walls. On the right-hand side are the metal and wood features for fencing. Shown here is the proposed landscaping plan in more detail. The proposed improvements include enhancements to the site paths, the renovated pool areas, replacement retaining walls, and new trellis structures as well near each of the pools, one to the south of the lap pool and one to the west of the leisure pool, as well as new pool fencing to comply with environmental health requirements. The project does trigger a site development permit, subject to review by the ASCC, as it involves 158 cubic yards of applicable soil movement. Here is one of the site sections near the lap pool showing the new replacement retaining wall, new fencing, plantings, and renovated concrete decking. Another site section shows the sight line from the existing fitness center with new site paths, native plantings, a new 10-foot trellis structure, and renovated pool area. The project features predominantly native replacement plantings and does comply with the water usage requirements. The project was reviewed by the Conservation Committee, who indicated no remaining concerns. Also included in the project is new site exterior lighting. It includes 133 path lights around the site, primarily site paths, 20 trellis lights, 12 step lights, and 6 lights mounted on the support building. The project does propose lighting in order to comply with the California Building Code, mainly the egress requirements, as confirmed by the applicant and also confirmed by town building staff. The proposed lighting is for the purposes of safety and for egress lighting. The project was noticed to all property owners within a 300-foot radius, and the applicant has conducted their own in-neighbor outreach. To date, no public comments have been received by town staff. Staff's recommendation is that the ACC review and approve the requested architectural review and site development permit for pool renovations, the pool support building, and associated site improvements at 1 Indian Crossing, subject to the conditions of approval. I'm available to answer any questions, and the project applicant is also in person. Thank you.
Questions? No. 4 lights on the building where the bathrooms are going to be. That's code? Or, I mean, there are 2 lights on the back and 2 lights on the front. Isn't code 1 light at a door?
Yeah, as I understand it, there
See
is.
the square there, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights. Even on the back side. Anyway, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy. I'm sure the applicant can elaborate further as well. But I understand that the proposed lighting is for the purposes of safety and code compliance with building code.
Okay.
I think in this sort of case, that the building code requirements would sort of control.
Thank you. I'll see what my fellow commissioners have to say also. So no questions? Okay, what about you guys? Do you have something that you want to add to today's wonderful informational meeting?
I want to state, I'm Mac Irvin with Portola Valley Ranch. Do I have to turn it on? It's on. The association itself is 50 years old, and so is the smallest of these 2 pools. First permitted 50 years ago, the second 39 years ago. They're broken. We've created a plan to fix them. Our subject matter experts on architecture and landscape architecture are here for any questions you may have, and thank you for your attention.
Okay, any questions to the group? That was a pretty thorough presentation today. Yeah. Is there any public comment on this project? In the room? No? How about online?
No one online.
No one online. All right, so let's come back to commissioners. Carter, you want to take it?
Thank you for the presentation and the walkthrough this afternoon. I really appreciate that. I know the pain that you're going through, trying to deal with, public health, and, all of their issues. I really only have two concerns, but I support the project. The first concern, actually, I started to bring up when I was talking about, the root zone of that big tree. And at the time, I was under the impression that the only intrusion into that root zone, was the handicap access kind of trail, going along in front of the fitness center. And as I, went home and further reviewed, the drawings, I also see a shade structure and a retaining wall. And I do believe, that's probably intruding in that root zone. If your arborist, still feels comfortable, I still support the project. And my major concern is the precedent setting, issue of lighting, because the lighting is, is more than double or triple, what we would anticipate, with our dark community, because it really is about wayfinding, rather than so many foot candles, per foot. At the same time, I don't think, that anybody but the ranch, the citizens of the ranch are impacted. And as a consequence of, all of the outreach, that you've had, the design committee, response, I don't feel that the rest of the town is impacted, in any way, and that you've already vetted, whether there's, any concerns at all. So I support the project as proposed.
Lance?
I appreciate the presentation. It's quite thorough, even though I was a little bit late, sorry. But the path lighting does seem abundant, I guess would be the word, but we might still be compliant. So maybe knock a few of them out if it doesn't really need it. Otherwise, I thought it was thoughtful. And those decks need to get fixed.
Thank you.
I also appreciated having the opportunity to walk around and really get a sense of the project. I think it's very sensitive to the site and, what's already there. I think it's a really nice project and I support it as well. And I see Carter, what you're talking about, where they're getting into the root zone, but it does sound like you guys have put together a good plan with Ned Patchett. So,
Thank you. Thank you. I think, yes, I think all our concerns are the trees and the lighting. So, yes, and what about the pool light? I mean, the times that I've been there at night, it's actually sufficient to even walk around when the pool is lighted. So, I mean, and what happens with the pool light? I want to make sure that it's not shining towards sandstone, so that they're not looking into the source of light in the pool. And I think that there's way too much lighting. I don't understand 5 lights on that building, especially when there's no traffic behind it. You guys are up against wildland, and that's important for animals, and other species. So I really want you to keep it as dark as possible. And I don't know how to tell you about eliminating the lights, but I think you need to work that. And yes, I mean, I agree with Carter, the tree is critical. So we need to make sure, and I love it that you guys are doing the trench. The trench could be moved. You know, so you're doing you know, an experimental trench. All right. Well, I agree. I think it's smart. And I think you guys are making good decisions.
Very much.
And so are we taking action on this? All right. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'd move approval as proposed with two conditions. One is that, there be additional, care taken, for the tree's root zone. And that consideration, come back to a designated member of the ASCC to a lighting plan, that, considers, a significant reduction, in light of, the dark background, the dark skies, and its relationship, to the open space behind the building.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed, so it carries.
Thank you very much.
So congratulations, you guys. And when is it going to be finished? When can we go back to the pool? Oh, yeah, designated one person. When, well, we can do that later. Okay?
I
All right,
guess I'm
thank you,
sorry
you
to butt
guys.
in here as the town attorney. I can't help myself,
What?
but in terms of designating the person, just want to be clear, you're going to do that at a later meeting and
Yeah.
agendize that for a future meeting.
When they're ready for us.
Okay, I guess defer to Sarah whether. Okay,
Yes.
If that makes sense at a later meeting to,
Well, what if, I mean, what if it's 2 years from now? I mean, a year from now and
And we're
you're
not
not
here.
here.
You know something about my future
I
travel?
think we should wait until you guys are ready.
Fair enough.
Very good.
And we'll be contacted and we'll just decide who's going. Thank you for coming, everyone. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is 145 Lysandra Way. Is there a team for that?
There is, good evening. I am Jamie Bourne and
Can you speak up, please?
I'm Jamie Bourne. Good evening. Can I please kindly ask to be promoted as a panelist, and then I need to then, I believe, mute myself on Zoom, so just one moment.
Louder, please.
Usually people say I'm too loud. Can you hear me? Okay,
Better.
just one moment. Let me know.
And I'm interested to see this. I mean, this is the first time we've seen this. So this arrived on the table tonight?
I thought that I had given
No,
2 copies.
never seen this? Okay.
Was
Okay.
it for Dana? I thought, but I guess not.
This letter? Oh, no, I had the plans. I just,
Oh, yes.
this is the
letter-
first I've seen of this letter, which is dated January 2nd.
Thank you. I was worried. I wasn't worried.
Well, do you want to see it?
I was
Dr.
questioning myself.
I've never seen that before. Okay,
Okay. One moment. I have my Zoom and then share and then bring up what I
we
would
can
like.
keep it.
All right. Good evening again. Thank you for your patience as I got my computer to function correctly. The item before you this evening is an architectural review for a new residence with an attached garage, hardscape improvements, significant tree removal, and fencing and an entry gate and a site development permit at 145 Lysandra Way, an 800 square foot, or actually less than 800, but A state exemption ADU is also proposed that is not under the ASCC. The project is subject to the Housing Accountability Act. A preliminary SB 330 application was submitted by the applicant and the town cannot deny permits projects that comply with objective standards. So this is being reviewed under objective design standards.
So Jamie, is this, the whole project is
Yes, correct. The whole project.
non-reviewable? Is that what you said? Or just the ADU?
The
Okay.
well, the entire, well, the ADU is not being reviewed, and that's a ministerial level review. This portion of the main residence and the site development is being reviewed. However, it's solely under objective standards review. And I've also stated that in the staff report. So I'll explain while I go through the slides. It should be hopefully more clear. So the project at 145 Lysandra Way is a 2.72 acre parcel located within the residential estate 2.5 acre zoning district and within the West Ridge Homeowners Association. The site is primarily located within the geologic soil types SPR, and portions of the southern and the western areas are within the PS soil type. Final approval from the West Ridge Homeowners Association will also be required. The existing site plan seen here on slide 3 shows the property, which currently contains a single family residence with an attached garage and a detached guest house, both of which are proposed to be demolished. The parcel is served by a private septic system, and easements on the property include a 5-foot parkway and bridle path easement side property line, a 10-foot bridle path easement along the eastern front property line with an overhead easement, wire overhead easement along a portion of the front property line, and a 5-foot public utility easement on the western side. The proposed site seen here includes a 5,569 square foot story residence, 492 square foot attached garage. The residence includes 4 bedrooms, 4.5 bathrooms, a living room, TV room, den, pantry, and 2 attached decks. The first deck is 852 square feet, and the second level deck in the rear is approximately 34 square feet. There are additional site improvements, which include the new driveway and retaining walls to accommodate the site, uncovered parking, and trash enclosure in boxes. The project site is permitted a maximum of 12,348 square feet of impervious surface area. The proposal includes 4,057 square feet of impervious surface, consisting of the driveway, parking areas, retaining walls, condenser pad, covered porch area, and existing driveway, leaving 8,291 square feet of remaining impervious surface allowance, which complies with the elevations for the north and the south are shown here on slide 5. This slide depicts the proposed north and south elevation view. As I mentioned, the perimeter of the proposed structures has been clearly staked on the site, and story markers have been installed. Story poles are typically required for residences. However, under the Housing Affordability Act, the town's review must rely on objective measurable standards, because story poles are a visualization tool rather than a measurable development standard that applicant requested that statement be used in lieu of story. The proposed residence uses a contemporary palette, including plaster and Dunn Edwards cover of night, vintage wood, cedar, fiber, cement siding, board form concrete retaining walls, AZEC decking, and gray asphalt driveway. Windows and railings are black aluminum and matte black metal. All exterior materials comply with the town's objective reflectivity standards. The light reflectance values range from approximately 6 to 39, which is below the town's maximum allowable LRV value of 40. Roofing materials also comply with the town's reflectivity limits. proposed fencing is located along the front parcel of the parcel with a gate at the driveway and extends across the front right portion of the site. The fencing is designed in a modern farmhouse style with a maximum height of 4 feet and is set back 25 feet from the front parcel boundary. The proposed fencing and gate comply with the town's design, the town's fencing ordinance, maximum heights, and applicable design standards. The cross-section of the fencing design is provided in the plan set and. There are 2 significant tree removals proposed to accommodate the construction of the new residence. Both trees are post-live oaks measuring 17 inches and 18 inches in diameter and are located within the buildable area of the site. Their removal was required to allow placement of the proposed residence. You can see here from this, I think this is a really good thing. Shows the existing trees to remain, those 2 that are proposed for removal. The project proposes approximately 775 cubic yards cut and 100 cubic yards of fill, resulting in the export of approximately 675 cubic yards of material. Soil movement totaling 375 cubic yards is subject to review as part of the site development permit process. Grading is proposed to accommodate the residents' driveway and parking areas. Proposed retaining walls comply with the town's maximum height requirements. The driveway width will comply with the minimum requirements for located in the town's zoning and municipal code. In the proposal, the parking comply with the town's objective standards containing at least 2 covered and 2 uncovered spaces. The exterior lighting is not really clearly shown on the plans. The lighting table indicates that there are 8 650 lumen fixtures along the rear deck. However, only 6 are shown in the diagram, and 1,000 lumen sconce is listed, but it's not fully shown. Sheets E 1.1 or E 1.2, and the planning and building will review the exterior fixtures to meet objective standards, and we will confirm that the lighting is in compliance with, as Dana mentioned previous, the building standards for each door, and and then the maximum output of 1,125 lumen per fixture, with up to 2 fixtures permitted at the garage door, totaling to 1,125 lumens. The applicant team is also here. Is also available to answer questions related to proposed exterior lighting.
So Jamie,
Yes,
the deck lighting you said was 8 at how many lumens?
8 total, and they are 650.
Thank you.
Yeah. Public notice was mailed to all owners of the project on February 27th. Regarding the project review, the applicant has also conducted their own public outreach to neighbors listed on the neighbor outreach letter that was provided in the staff report attachments. July of 2025, and received no concerns regarding the project. No comments were received from neighbors or as a result of public notice. Staff recommends that the ASCC review and approve the requested architectural and site development proposal for a new residence within the garage. The significant tree removals, fencing with the gate, associated site improvements, and site development permit subject to the conditions of approval. Staff, both town staff and the town attorney and the applicant team are available for questions by the ASCC.
Pardon? Questions of staff.
Well, I know. I mean, do we want to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So are there questions
of staff.
I have an overriding question.
Yes, there are questions.
Okay. And I wanted to ask, are the design guidelines, part of the ordinance? Are they part of the rules of the town? Since they were enacted on July 26th, 1989, and they're still in effect?
They are the town's guidelines, yes.
Still the same.
Well,
Correct.
it's-
For ASCC.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Jamie, is there any, and maybe it would help just, for me, the height limits, is there anything different about the height limits? Because this is a, yeah, what is it, SB 330 project.
Height limits are the same, so the
Fine.
compliance requirement is 28 vertical and 34 maximum.
34 max, okay. And can you remind me, so the 34 max would be, is from lowest point of grade to the highest point, and then what is the 28 measurement taken from?
The 28 is from any point up to the top of each place, so at any point, you would go through the structure, say.
I see, I see. Okay, thank you.
Glass treatment on the windows.
I'm
What
not
do we do to
told.
protect people across the valley from the light?
So what, objectively, the requirement for the windows would be building code, because there's not any objective, design standard that is at this point for single family residential for a specific.
Sarah, can I ask, is the applicant, can they be promoted to panelist?
Let me exit and I'm gonna have to stop sharing. I'll probably- If they aren't. with us.
And in the meantime, Jamie, was this project evaluated against the design guidelines?
It's being evaluated for any objective. It is a subjective guideline requirement that would not be able to be. So to the extent of objective.
Okay, you're dancing around, so define it for me.
It being involved in the judgment by a public official and being uniformly verified. For criterion available and notable by both the development applicant and public official prior to submittal.
So with that, I'd like to ask the town attorney a question. On page 2, of the design guidelines, it indicates that each site in Portola Valley presents specific constraints, to development, and also presents unique opportunities. Careful site selection and design allows for sensitive, development consistent with town policies while satisfying both most individual needs. The next partial sentence is very important. Not every site can accommodate two-story structures. How does that fit into what we can review or not? Because this is one of the principal tenets of why the ASCC was created as a commission in Portola Valley in 1960.
I thought we were actually required to keep two-story.
Well, yes, but this is a two-story proposal, and this is a written policy in the town that says that not every site can accommodate two-story structures.
So yeah, thank you for the question. So the definition that Jamie read is from SB 330, and this is a fairly new state law that added a definition of what it means to be objective. And I think the key part of the definition that's relevant here is that the standard has to be knowable by both the development applicant and the public official before submittal of an application. So I think the challenge with the not every site is appropriate for 2 stories. It's not knowable which ones are and which ones aren't. So that's the part that's not
Well,
knowable.
this brings up our point, from the ASCC that we've been trying to get across, for, the better part of 10 years now, is to have, a pre-review, pre-application, with the ASCC so that we can actually have some impact on this. The other alternative, for us, is to change the ordinance, so that only 1 stories are allowed, except with ASCC approval.
We've never done a new house without a site, without story pole, without neighbors being involved, without neighbors being able to comment. So, I mean, this is a big ask, to ask the ASCC to approve this without even seeing it. So, I don't understand where we are. Disappointing.
So is the major, I guess I'm just thinking about, I think just based on looking in my notes, I mean, we have some questions about the height. But I mean, I guess I'm curious what our purpose is here in reviewing. Is it really just focusing on the tree? Because there's some element to that, but I mean, is that even anything that we weigh in on? Because at the end of the day, they're developing this property, and if we were saying, I mean, I guess I'm just curious.
There's 2 heritage trees being removed. There's 2 heritage trees being removed, an 18-inch and a 20-inch. And I mean, if those 2 trees were preserved, this building would be much better. If the siding were different, it'd be much better. If the design guidelines, had any weight and could have, and would, I mean, should have been conform, some level of conformance, needs to be, part of this. Well, what it indicates is that, we have to
update. Rewrite, update.
Because, the issues, on page 7, regarding ridge lines and hilltops, all 5 of the elements, on, this page have not been complied with at all.
And those seem knowable. They're right here, drawings.
Yeah, and they've been,
Well, and I have to say at the chair, to just.
It's not on. I thought it was on. That I should have been consulted about that we weren't going to have a site visit and we weren't going to have story polls. I mean, you get to the place where you're writing about story polls in the packet, and I feel like that should have been a conversation. I mean, if the whole thing. So I don't understand the process anymore. And it's almost like ASCC is not necessary for this anymore.
well, I do think it is, because I think
Good.
there's an error in the staff report, indicating that the building is compliant, because in at least 2 locations, the 28 foot has been violated by someplace between, the corners, the downhill corners of the project, are 31 and 33 feet tall, based on math, so I think we could vote to deny right now, if it's on objective, criteria, because it doesn't meet the objective criteria.
And I feel badly for the applicant because this is one of their meetings. You know, so, I mean, I don't think we can, I don't think we can discuss this project. I think we have to deny it.
I would recommend taking public comment on the item. I saw the applicants here, so they can
Well,
they
we're
can weigh
still
in.
doing questions.
Okay, great. But yes, I mean, in terms of objective, that is one of the purposes of obviously the ASCC is to, you know, weigh in on whether they are meeting objective criteria. So that is an appropriate role.
Okay. Do we take public comment or do you guys have any more
I
questions?
think the applicant, I think the applicant should, if they've got a presentation, I'd like them to present.
Okay. That's done.
Can we ask the?
Hi, if the applicant's online and is able to talk, please raise your hand. If you are unable to mute yourself, if you are already promoted to panelist and can speak, go ahead.
This is Andrew Goodwin. I'm the architect. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, panelists, for seeing this, and thank you, committee. I appreciate you reviewing this, and I understand the confusion with the SB 330. SB 330 was provided to us as a criteria to get this through for our homeowner, and part of that is the understanding that this is a streamlined zoning regulation that the state came through with. So as we went through and reviewed the process in the project with not only our client, but with Ms. Bourne, the planner, we went through multiple iterations of review and even reviewed the height that is in question. And so I'm happy to go through that further if that's a requirement. But our A4 sheet, and it's the section sheet, shows the worst case scenario of the foundation where the grade hits the foundation to the top of the roof. And that measurement is under 28 feet. And the regulations in this area point to 28 feet as the objective height standard for a home. And so that's what we were held to. The grading and the drainage plans also show kind of where that foundation and the new grading is going to occur so that the building is not necessarily sitting above a ridge line. And I understand the concerns there and the fact that this building is taller than the existing home. But again, this existing home is being replaced due to fire constraints and fire regulations as well. And I do want to point out that even with the existing trees being surrounding this property, we cannot, based on the 2025 Wildland Urban Interface codes and the insurance requirements for homes in general, bring any kind of trees closer to this building anymore as part of the regulations within California. So that's kind of why the building is sited where it is and trying to sit it into the hillside. We're actually digging into the hillside to recess the bottom floor and to recess the garage so that the building not only nestles within the trees that it can, but also does not appear taller, which would then ruin this 28-foot height limit that we also have on the property. But again, I'm happy to discuss any other comments, questions, subjective design standards that are apparent. But I appreciate Ms. Bourne and what was presented from an objective planning review, which I understand is difficult.
Okay. Thank you. So I think what?
I have another staff question, if I could, what was the title, of SB 330? And what was it intended to do?
Oh, go ahead.
Now, let me ask, I want to ask the
Yeah,
town attorney.
Sure.
Your microphone's not on.
Thank you. It's called the Housing Crisis Act. And that is one of two statutes that I think are relevant here. The other one, not to be confused with the Housing Accountability Act. And those two basically are both relevant here. The Housing Crisis Act, the SB 330, it created a new definition of what an objective standard is. That's the one we just read. The Housing Accountability Act applies to housing development projects. And those are any projects that have 2 units or more. And that statute, that state law says that the town cannot deny a housing development project that complies with objective design criteria unless certain findings are made regarding, the findings are regarding public health and safety.
Okay. So this property already has a housing unit on it. And 1 unit is being replaced. I'm not sure, and the ADU, is allowed without design review separately. So I'm not sure that the housing affordability, the Housing Crisis Act, would actually be germane. Do you? Because it's not creating a housing unit. It's replacing a housing unit. I know that's like splitting hairs.
Well, I think it's a good question. I think if it was simply a remodel, I could certainly see that argument that it's not actually a 2-unit project. But here, my understanding is that, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a complete replacement of the existing unit. So I'm looking at HCD guidance that talks about.
Well, if it was replacing the unit without increasing its size and breadth and arrangement, then it would be exempt from design review. But since it's increasing its height and it's rearranging its placement, it's taking out trees and it's increasing, it's got a grading component, that requires subjective review, then I don't think, it complies with the intent, of SB 330. Because it's not creating a unit that couldn't already be replaced. And that replacement would be. So I think we need some more time and, to create, an opinion associated with that. Because, if it was replacing it without increasing the grading, wasn't increasing the height, wasn't taking down trees, then, then the SB 330 would be, an important tool, to allow houses to be rebuilt, to make them more fire safe.
I'll just say that I have, I'm not aware of any statutory distinction regarding a 2-unit project that replaces 1 unit versus one that is built on a vacant site. I hear what you're saying. I guess I'm not aware of any authority that would, split that hair.
And the whole intent is to create additional housing units. It's not to create 5,000 square foot homes. I mean, the Housing Crisis Act is about affordability. I mean, if this was, creating a 2,000 square foot house and an ADU, then we wouldn't have the issues, associated with it. So, I'm struggling, with, using the laws to do something it was not intended to do. And as a consequence, I'm really uncomfortable.
And I'm struggling actually that you had to be here because I think that's because of a lack of communication with the planning department and ASCC. I mean, nobody told us anything. I assumed that we had a site meeting today. So I was so surprised. And I'm surprised for the neighbors that there are no story poles for them to understand, the height. And I always thought that ASCC did see anything that was a 2-story house. So luckily I know the site, but other than that, I don't understand what happened.
I just want to clarify that this is unique. So this is, as far as I'm aware, like one of the first times that this approach has been used. So it is challenging the processes. They're using it for a reason, as the applicant described. So I will say, for us to discuss this, what is the review criteria, make sure we're aligned with this because it is a unique situation. Another thing is the site visits are not required. We can't necessarily require them. So it's up to the applicant as well to gracefully invite people onto the property and do the site visit. Obviously, we encourage it. We really want it. That's what the ethos of the town is. I've learned we really like it. I think that helped with the previous project, but there was no site visit scheduled for this project. So an applicant has the right not to do that as well, but we really encourage it and appreciate it. So that's why there was no site visit. And then because of the application and process that is before us, there was the challenge of the story polls and the request. And that is why we have our town attorney here, because there are so many different nuances to this processes that we want to make sure that we're getting it right and that we have an appropriate understanding. So that's where we had to lean on our attorney to interpret the information and the process and the application itself, and to make sure that we're coming with the appropriate information to you.
Can I make one more comment, if you don't mind? Is there a
Yeah.
possibility? And I hear you guys when it comes to this idea of SB 330 and what's being called the Housing Crisis Act of 2019. But I do a lot of affordable housing and a lot of advocacy for affordable housing. So I do understand that the SB language is very, very important. And that technically the SB 330 prohibits local jurisdictions from enacting new laws that would have the effect of reducing the legal limit on new housing. Now, the legal limit on this property is 1. And it's also to not basically create regulatory barriers for the production of housing in general. Because as we all know, that part of the reason why California is in a housing crisis is there are a lot of barriers. And not saying that these barriers in your town are any less important, and I do understand the reasons behind them, but the whole reason that SB 9 exists is to prevent local governments from down zoning and trying to produce them to upzone while also suspending the enactment of local down zoning and housing construction moratoriums. So we're using this in a way to create a timely processing of housing and to ensure that the demolition of housing is not a result. And we're not resulting in a net loss of units. We're actually still the exact same. So this is an effort where SB 330 is to help prohibit the local jurisdictions from slowing down the process of a legal permitting process, if that makes sense. It's not about, and I think the Housing Crisis Act of 2019 is a very poor title for this when you actually read the verbiage of SB 330 and what it means.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question of Andrew? Andrew, did you use the design guidelines, as a guidepost as you were developing the design of this house?
We use the subjective nature of the design guidelines to help us while working with our client to achieve what they desired, while also working with the planner to review this to a subjective design requirement.
Did you drive through town and look at other homes, and kind of the character of the town?
Yes, and
And
we actually used certain homes that were contemporary of nature with very similar wood materials as precedents for the material ideas and the setting of the home that we have.
have you seen a house in town that has, two walls that are, basic more than 80% glass in town? That
I
look,
cannot say that I have,
okay.
but as you know, most of those neighborhoods, you can't see the house fully.
Well, just in terms of process, I've been here for 25 years. I have never not seen a new home. So, and I feel poignant. I think that's poignant for neighbors. That everybody comes together. Sometimes we go to their houses and look from their property. I don't think that we did this right. So I'm not comfortable even proceeding, and I don't know how you guys feel. I think.
Well,
Pardon?
go ahead, Gina.
Well, it seems like we have to, right? And I guess a question that I had was, is it possible for us to proceed with asking for questions and clarification and discussion, and then Catherine maybe provide us, oh, that you can't go, you can't make that condition of approval, for instance, as part of whatever ruling we have, or you can't make a ruling on something. I don't know. I'm just wondering if, how to keep the discussion moving. Does it make sense for us to, like, we can talk about the things that we're taking issue with or whatnot, and then get a ruling from Catherine on whether or not it's something that we can more formally comment on, or
Staff could help provide, if there are questions about whether a particular condition would be objective or not. Maybe that's the question. I also, I guess, wanted to comment on the site visit. I was not aware either that this was not scheduled for a site visit. And so I guess I would just say, certainly if the applicant were willing to agree to one this evening, you could continue the meeting and have a site visit and bring it back. And so anyway, I guess I wasn't involved in the process, but I did just want to note that would be another way. Of course, this applicant would need to agree to that.
Also, how the neighbors get to be involved, how they get to go see the site. You guys may have sent letters. I don't open letters from the town. Was everyone aware, of this? If every neighbor have a opportunity to comment on this, especially with 2 walls of glass. So I want to hear from you guys.
I'd also just note that there looks like someone's here for public
Yes,
comment.
I mean,
and
but
so these are
we're
still
not at
clarifying
public
questions.
comment
Okay,
yet.
great.
So
I mean, if we're gonna dive in.
Let me ask the town attorney a question. If the building appears to be, taller, than the 28-foot height limit, is that grounds for denial? Or is that grounds, for a continuance, to allow the applicant, to correct that?
So I'm just going to kind of go back to your statutory authority here. The commission has the authority to deny a project that does not comply with objective standards. So if there's a factual question about whether it complies or not, you might want to talk to the applicant about that. They might prefer to have a continuance than a denial, but I think either way, it is within the commission's discretion to do either one.
Okay. Andrew, I've got a question. No,
Yes, sir.
are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, on the corner of the master bedroom, the existing grade on the survey
Yes, sir.
is 602.6. The height of the roof directly above that, is somewhere around 635. Well, that's the highest point, but
If we're looking at the civil engineering drawings,
yes, that's because your elevation doesn't accurately, your elevation on A 3.2 doesn't accurately, the bottom elevation doesn't accurately, call out the existing grade. It might call out a future grade, but not an existing grade. And the elevation of the building needs to have, both the existing grade and future grade. And the height of the building is judged against existing or future, whichever is lowest. So there isn't an existing grade because, on column line 2, that grade is about 6.5 feet lower than you call it out, than you're showing it on the elevation.
yeah, if we look at the civil engineering drawings on sheet C 4.0 of your packet.
Mhm.
That corner that you're specifically talking about is actually, it's actually at a point of approximately 609, bottom of
No,
wall. And
no,
our,
it's not. No, it's not. It's 602.6.
that's actually, there's some kind of wall that exists right there, but that's a retaining wall that's holding back the existing grade.
Move over. You driving? I need to get over to the master bedroom corner.
Yeah, you can see that there is a C-shaped object that's holding back the grade.
No, but that point extends beyond, the retaining wall.
I
And that's,
understand, but the existing
and that,
grade there at that retaining wall is 609.
no, it is not. Because
On
behind
on
that
the
wall,
top side, on the north side of the retaining wall, it is 609.
no, there's a 604 line right behind that that goes all the way across. That retaining wall is only 1.5 feet tall.
We should have had a site visit.
No. Make it bigger.
So the intent of this is to be at least 1 foot below the lowest grade that that corner hits, which based on our civil engineer and our work together was to be 607. The pad says 607 with the finished floor at 609.
Well, that might be, but that's fill. Because the existing grade is 602.6 on that gravel terrace below that retaining wall.
Okay, well then the question becomes
And on the other corner,
if I cantilever the building though at that point, if it's based on the finished grade, would I not be up against 609 finished grade? 608, 609 finished grade?
where you cantilever,
So
you
if
cantilever the basement.
if you but if you wish to have that be a principle of discussion for us to come back and show that the house has been pushed back, would that be satisfactory to what you want?
That is not my job. My job is to say that both corners of this house are 31 and 33 feet tall. It's too wide for the top of the hill.
Subjectively, the 28 foot is what we're,
It's not subjective. It's totally objective.
we have to be subjectively held based on SB 330 though, sir.
Yeah, it's not
No,
objective.
we need to be objectively
Yes, I'm
giving
sorry I
criteria,
misspoke.
no, it's okay. I think
Yeah.
Andrew misspoke. We're giving objective feedback. What Carter's giving is objective
Objective,
feedback
yeah.
about grade and heights, not
Correct.
subjective.
And I'm saying the conversation about the width on top of the hill is too great on the width at the top of the hill is subjective. If we're talking about an objective decision, then if you would wish for us to uh, let's say remeasure and show a different graphic to show that we are under 28 feet,
Where your graphic is in air
A correct graphic.
would
because
you,
it doesn't show existing, versus new. It shows new. And
the civil engineering grading plans, sir, are the ones that show the grade as well. So as a complete package, we do have other plans to reference for this, though.
we're looking directly at the civil engineering and they're not showing any fill on that corner.
Can I ask Sarah, would it be possible for me to join Zoom? Because I was thinking it might help if I could just do a quick markup of the 604-foot contour on Jamie's screen that she's sharing.
Sure, either that or if the applicant would like to share their screen and point out as well on their side.
Yeah, and maybe that would be possible.
Andrew,
Andrew, if you could share your screen and maybe just trace over the grade line 604 foot and take it around the building, that would make things, that's what we're looking at that is coming up as a flag for us, that in the elevations, the grade is shown higher than that, but what we're seeing on your contours on your site plan, and it appears in your civil as well, is that 604 contour line coming around the building right at that corner that we're discussing, that lower left-hand corner, which would mean that the building height is taller. And I think for us, we're not understanding how the number's anything different from that, because it seems pretty clear in the plans.
You're talking about, let's see. I can't share my screen.
Okay.
Just
Can
one
you
moment.
promote him to panelist?
Jamie, can you?
Sarah's the
Okay.
host.
Still fun. I think I know where you're talking about as far as the 604, 602 number. So I guess let me just ask the blunt question. What do you want us to do then?
I want your building to comply.
Understood. Do you want us to submit new drawings that show that it comply at 28 feet?
And I'd like the trees to be preserved and the buildings to be, rebuilt, preserving the trees. So you build the buildings far enough away that they don't have to be removed.
Well, and I think, yeah, just specifically addressing that corner and how to manage that is, yes, I mean, if the foundation of the building is sitting at that corner and the grade is at 604 or somewhere in that world, then we would want the building to be no more than 28 feet higher than that to comply with the zoning objective statement.
Still, it needs to come back.
Yeah.
And hopefully next time we'll have a site meeting. So. Are we ready for public comment, or do you guys have?
Sure.
All right, doesn't look like you guys have anything, or do you? Come on up.
Mary Ann Plunder, Conservation Committee. I just have a simple question. This SB 330, does this mean, because obviously the Conservation Committee wasn't able to look at the trees either. Does it mean under that act, somebody can, maybe they have 20, 100-year-old trees and they can just remove them and nobody is the wiser or can go out and look at them? Do I understand that correctly?
You can't cut a tree down without a permit.
Well, let's ask the town attorney. Just that.
Again, I'm just going to go back to whether there's objective design criteria. I'm not familiar with the town's tree protection ordinance with all the details. And so if the ordinance says you can only cut down 2 trees per site, then that would be the answer. Yes, you'd have to look at what the objective criteria are in the ordinance.
I know it well.
Okay, yes.
Anything from you, Judith?
My suggestion is, regardless of what you do on this project, is we clearly need a better understanding of SB 330 and how it works with regard to the current town guidelines, what can be objective. And to me, these are actually pretty complicated questions of state law overriding local law, and when does one truly trump the other, or when are they additive? So I don't have answers to that. I'm not an expert in this area, but I do think it's going to benefit the town and it's going to benefit applicants if we can come up with clearer guidelines here, because we don't want the applicants to suffer for a lack of clarity, and we don't want the town to be unable to use principles that's long adopted. We better know what we cannot do anymore, because even if some of these guidelines we've long used are not enforceable anymore, then we have another tool. What objective guidelines can you use in lieu of whatever is not enforceable? So I think this all points to me to the need to really be rigorous in understanding the legal parameters and how they relate to the principles that have long been used here. And, you know, the case of first impression is unfortunately going to be the time when you realize the need of what you need to have things have a more constructive framework so that we can all be more efficient. I mean, we want to support housing, we want improved housing stock. There's not really principles involved here. It's just that I think we've got to reset where we are on this. So I don't know what to do with that. I think I'll ask staff to consider and the town attorney to consider what discussions ought to happen. But to me, that's what's going on this evening, and it's understandable. But I have a lot of legal questions that would come out, and where Carter's going or areas I would explore. The only other thing I would ask is please speak into the the mics, because we are going to need this recording to be used as an example of the issues that come up and need or may come up in the future and need to be addressed. So I don't have a place to weigh in on this particular situation, but I'll reflect back that these questions are legitimate, both from the applicant and from the commission, and we ought to really look at this going forward. Catherine, let me know if you think that's a constructive way to navigate the law versus town practices. Okay.
And especially, you know, with our budget issue, I don't think we want to have an attorney at all of our ASCC meetings either. So,
Well, yes and no, because
well, it's never happened.
no. But when laws are changing, that's the moment you need that guidance. So this is something that we ought to invest in, understand, and plan around, both for the benefit of applicants and for the town, because we want to get on together. So I'll stop
Thank you.
there.
Thanks. That's great. All right, so let's now move on to public comment. And we've done you guys, so there's nobody else in the room. So who is online?
We have David Cardinal, who I'll allow you to talk,
Okay.
and hopefully you can unmute yourself.
I think I have. Thanks. This is an eye-opening presentation for sure. First of all, two little comments. One is that Jamie was inaudible during her presentation. I could see a little bit from the captions when I turned them on. And I get later on, she became audible, so that's good. But related to that, there doesn't seem to be any way, since no one can actually use anything on a computer during the meeting, to report that no one can hear the person on the panel. So that's something to think about. Bigger issue is a much bigger issue. I'm totally on board with Carter and Dana, and I want to build on what Judith said very politely, and that, you know, I think this is kind of a whole bad faith deal, really. I mean, we have an ASCC, there's an offer to go out and do stuff, and they're basically trying to shoehorn something in without a site visit, without story polls, using a state law. That's not a great way to be part of it. It's more like a Los Altos Hills, cram it down your throat attitude than a Portola Valley attitude. So anything we can do to curb that and make people actually own up instead of just saying, well, we can redraw the drawings and it'll be a different foot and not answer about the glass walls. I think that's a slippery slope, as you all know. So I'm all in favor of putting the brakes on that and encouraging people who want to live here to want to live here and not just build a McMansion somewhere and not really care about the town. So thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Anybody else?
None that I see.
Okay.
I have a question of staff. If we deny this based on a objective criteria, doesn't the project have to come back substantially different, than its current application? If they reapply?
It would only need to meet the closer. It would need to meet the requirements that are objective. And so whichever requirement it's not meeting, it would need to be adjusted in that realm. If it caused it to need to be redesigned, then that would be a result, but it doesn't require it per se to be fully redesigned. It just has to comply.
I think there's a section in the ordinance, when there's a denial, and it goes to the, Board of Adjustment and it's denied at the Board of Adjustment. I believe, because I've been through this, in the past, that there's a specific clause, in the Board of Adjustments action that, if a new project is applied for, on the same property, that it has to be substantially different.
We've denied a couple of times and they came back substantially different.
I'd have to look at that. I don't know off the top of my head, but we could consider that. Again, it would have to, be objective. We might run into that same issue about whether the substantial difference is objective or not.
I want to make sure that public comment is closed. So it's closed. Any other comments? What are we going to do here?
Well, I've found two locations on the project. The downhill two corners of the house as they meet the ground, as Gina has suggested, are, about 604, which puts, the front two corners of the building, over the height limit, making it ineligible for approval. And to me, there's two sides to ineligible for approval. One is to deny it. Two is, to say it's ineligible for approval, and, send the applicant back, to, continue this, to the point where the applicant, can, come up with a design, that potentially meets that. I don't think that, really, complies with the intent, of the applicant. Because as he was suggesting, to draw the foundation back underneath the building, and, cantilever those sections, it seems to me, that, that would answer, potentially the, objective design criteria, but it doesn't do anything, to improve, the building. I would like an opportunity, with the design team and the owner, to actually improve, the building, and its response to the site. Rather than denying the application, so that they'd have to, file new fees and, and start over. Because I think there's, there's some other things, on the site that I think would be better, if it was more completely thought out.
Lance?
I'm aligned with Carter, I think, in my feeling. I'd like to figure out a way to work it out without just throwing it all back. If that makes any sense. And maybe we can't. Maybe this is just going to be a force feed. I don't know, but the elevations are not. We can't get an agreement on the elevations of the house. Can't get an agreement on the height.
I think the other issue for me is the tree removal. You know, because the existing house is, you know, resided there for a long time with the trees that are there. And that, you know, if you, you know, came up with another design, you know, or an alternative to this design, with some modifications, you know, then, you know, because the ASCC's and the trees are preserved. You know, the way the, you know, heritage tree ordinance, you know, is written. It's written to preserve the trees, you know, over a certain size and over a certain species. It doesn't say that, you know, so many trees, you know, can be removed. It just says that they're preserved. Typically, you know, the application would be either reviewed, you know, by the Conservation Committee. But in the case of an ASCC review, you know, it's reviewed by, you know, the ASCC. Is that a subjective review? Because the ordinance is clear that heritage trees are preserved.
And conservation was not allowed on site to look at the tree removals?
Yes, conservation was told that because of this legal, that we were not allowed to go on site.
When? Way back?
Possibly September. I would have to look it up. We were there once on different trees where we were told those were even bigger trees. They had to be removed because of insurance. However, when we asked for the insurance, there was the town asked for the insurance letter, and that was never shown. So we denied the approval of those trees. That was maybe in spring 2025, and those two trees we were not allowed to go on site.
Thank you. And have we heard from WASC on this project? Westridge? Architectural site,
Let the applicant.
what about them?
That. I
What
would
did they
feel-
have to say?
The applicant, let's have the applicant respond to that. And that is included in the staff report as well. Could Andrew, speak to that, please.
Yeah, I believe we have a letter from WASC as well. This was in the incompleteness review resubmittal that we gave. But I can work with the owner to provide that if you needed that as evidence.
So Westridge has not approved it yet?
My understanding,
I believe they have.
my understanding and what I included in the staff report is that it is not approved at this time by the HOA.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question? Okay, just in the Oaks, and maybe, Jamie, maybe you can answer this question. What is, so it's the proximity to the building, but is it driven by fire that there's, and I guess my second part of my question is there a certain distance that trees need to be from a house that's triggering these removals? I guess it's just unclear to me kind of what the actual regulatory framework is for that.
It could be either of the two buyer's requirements if it is within, I believe, don't quote me, I need to look into there, but there's certain plants that it's 5 feet, and then there's certain that are 10, and then depends on how far it may go, you know, over the building. So that could be one of the fire requirements. And then there's also the arborist assessment as to whether, the trees, like the roots would be impacted so that it would require removal. So I'd need to take a quick look at the arborist report. and
Who is
make-
the arborist?
Just one moment. Davy.
Pardon, Davy?
So
They're mutilators. Okay.
I will say we seem to have a lot of conjecture on our questions as answers. I would think we would be better served with more objective, concise answers that had clarity. Like Westridge, the actual trees, the tree ordinance. Is it distance from house? Is it understory?
it depends.
A lot of places it's understory. You have to cut away the understory to a certain height. I think those would all be items that would be relevant.
Can I just answer the question? And it is also in the staff report that the 2 trees, they are being proposed for removal because of the impacts are expected to be high for, to those trees. That's indicated in the staff report and in the arborist report. So in this case, that is the reason they are being requested to be removed.
We could have worked through all of the stuff had we seen it 6 months ago, had we been able to talk. So I don't know what to do because I want you guys to give your opinions and then we'll decide what to do. Thank you, Lance, you just did. What about you, Jean?
I think I'm probably in the same boat as Lance and part of not feeling like this is a complete restart.
It needs to come back.
Yeah, and I guess I had a question about that because there's a certain number of meetings or where are we at with that? I mean, is it like, I guess the question in my mind is this something they're working with a subcommittee? Or is this something that comes back for a formal hearing? And then I guess the other question I have is what would our motion actually be? Because it's either disapprove or approve, but we're trying to find something in the middle.
We're
Sorry, I
trying
just
to
don't.
correct the mistakes.
I mean, I think that, from where I stand, there's definitely an issue with the height, and I think that's an objective issue that's happening. With some sort of a solution that addresses that specifically to be figured out by the applicant. But I don't know the answers to these other parts of like, what do we even do as a motion?
Looks like Carter's trying to figure out the answer on
No,
paper as he does.
No, actually, it's part of my thought process. So, Catherine, we would need a legal opinion, on the heritage tree ordinance. Because, if the heritage tree ordinance, is an objective design criteria, because, the heritage tree ordinance protects all trees, dependent on species and size, then any tree removal, is a subjective, review. But in order for SB, 330, to be in place, then those trees don't qualify the project. If the tree is being removed, then they're giving up the opportunity, for a subjective, design review. For an only objective design review, because they're asking for a subjective removal of the trees. And it appears based on the survey, that there's been some trees removed without benefit of permit. Because the survey indicates that there are trees there that now in the engineered plans, show up as stumps. So those trees were removed without benefit
Maybe that's why we didn't have a
permit.
site visit.
Can I get some clarification? So the request is for more information on whether the proposed tree removals comply with the objective standards set forth in the in the town's heritage tree ordinance?
Actually, more direct than that. You know, if, is the heritage tree ordinance objective? Because it doesn't allow any removal, of trees, of a certain, size based on species. Okay, so for SB 330 to be used, then the design has to preserve all trees. And that if a building can't be closer than so far from a tree, based on the fire ordinance, then the design has to comply, with the fire ordinance and actually have the design far enough away that it doesn't impact the trees.
I think we should work on that at a later time. And
No, I think that's actually,
for this project,
I think it is, because like the height, that would get, those are objective, design, objective design criteria, that would then make this project, subject to denial, because it asks for subjective, tree removal. So because the site is preeminent, and the trees are preeminent, and that's the way, the heritage tree ordinance was established, is that those trees are important to preserve. There are abilities within the tree ordinance, to allow tree removal permits, that are subjective. Those, applying for a tree removal permit, particularly when you're, starting over on the site, should be really questioned.
well, maybe you're going to make the decision on this house.
Well,
I mean, I'm happy to look into that. I do want to give Jamie an opportunity because she's much more in the details of this application. So my understanding is this project, they did seek approval for removal of 2 trees. And the staff recommendation is to approve that. Was the tree ordinance applied for that?
Based on the accommodation of the building that would need on site. So to accommodate the development. And since development is allowed within that area, within the buildable area, really all of the buildable area is possible depending on where the placement is proposed by the applicant. That would be the objective standard. If a tree is in the way, as Marianne mentioned in her question, oh my goodness, if there are trees and it is within the buildable area, that is under the objective standards right now, based on the way the code is written, that would be a removal that would be accommodated.
Are you aware of other trees that were removed?
No, I'm not. I was not told there were any trees that were removed.
so I'm looking at the plans,
Yes.
and the topo survey, which was done in 24, clearly shows trees in the old footprint
Uh-huh.
that now, when the new footprint is overlaid, they are marked as stumps.
Okay.
So I guess I'd like to see a history of the tree removal. And the tree, so what was clearly permitted? Because we didn't have anything back then. We just had ideas. We didn't have a plan that was approved
Yes.
to
so
take
that would-
trees out.
I would have looked at this point in time.
So there shows several trees that are now labeled very clearly. Well, I shouldn't say that clearly on the civil plans, because it's all white, faded out with the overlay of the proposed building that are listed as stumps
Okay.
to be removed.
So, and I'm unaware of exactly those tree numbers right now. And whether or not they were part of that application that Marianne mentioned, well, but that was denied, so we may want the applicant and homeowner to provide information if they have it on this, because this is not something that I have that information.
Well, the town would have whether or not those trees were issued permits for removal.
Well, between 2024, when the survey was performed, and now, or whenever the most up-to-date plans were provided, we can ask the applicant to wait, provide
Good
information.
idea.
So I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
I'd like to move a continuance, for this project to resolve the height limit issues, the tree removal issues, provide a history, of the conversion of trees to stumps that were protected under the Heritage Tree Ordinance. I'd like clarification from, either the planning staff, or the town attorney, or both, on whether any tree removal, is allowed, under SB 330 or that other code that you talked about. When there's alternatives on site, alternative locations, for an equal or, equal or better, opportunity for expression. That's my motion.
Is there a second on that motion?
Yes, there's a second in the interest of trying to work together.
All those in favor?
Clarifying question just before you vote. I don't normally sit with you all, so when you make a continuance, if you continue it to a date certain, then there's no need to renotice the site. If it's an open-ended continuance, then it would need to be renoticed. So just wanted to kind of put that out there on the table in terms of what your typical practice is or what you want to do in this.
Well, if I could, through the chair, I'd ask Andrew, do you think you can respond in 3 or 4 or 5 days? Because that's how much time you have, before we need to notice the next ASCC meeting.
We wouldn't have to notice it if it was scheduled to a date certain.
Right. But he needs to have his stuff in in about 5 days, so you can do the staff report.
Could we kick it though to a meeting?
We could,
After
but I'm opening it, opening the opportunity to Andrew to talk to us about, when you want this heard again.
And I might just put in a reminder. So the next ASCC meeting is March 23rd, and then the next after that is April 13th. So there's the pre-scheduled meetings just for Andrew.
I would need to understand the subjective criteria that's being asked for us to review.
No,
And I know,
there's no subjective criteria.
well, that's what you would ask, the difference between the objective and subjective to the town attorney.
The town attorney, has got a different charge. It's
Right. But does that
it's-
not affect what I need to then provide you in evidence?
No, you could assume whatever you want relative to all of the ordinance, including the Heritage Tree Ordinance. So you could reread the Heritage Tree Ordinance as well and figure out, what your application needs to do in order to be compliant with it. Because it's my expectation, Andrew, that you don't have a right, to take out a tree, that's protected under the Heritage Tree Ordinance. That's a subjective review, that disallows the use of SB 330 because the design require. Well, you're not allowed to remove a tree that is protected under the Heritage Tree Ordinance by your design, unless you want subjective design review, is my opinion.
Again, if I can get the town attorney to verify that opinion with us, work with our team, then I can turn around the review fairly quickly based on the objective standards that have been reviewed previously with Ms. Bourne.
So I think the question is, how long is it going to take to get an opinion about the tree ordinance?
I would want to just have at least a week to do that. My suggestion would be to continue this to the your first April meeting. Yes.
April 13th.
Okay.
All right, so
So
we left
amend-
it at a
amend the
motion,
motion.
a second.
Yeah,
So I'll amend the motion, to continue this to April 13th.
and I'll second the amendment.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so that's where we are. They're returning on April, for the April meeting. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, what's next? Yep. And just an announcement to the rest of you guys. Tomorrow, Carter and I are meeting about property, about 909 Westridge. It's a Zoom call. It's Jess Fields and with Lutzko, Ron Lutzko. Where it's a preliminary, we've already met with them once, but this is one of these early reviews. It makes so much sense. Anyway, they're excited, we're excited, and it's going to be a great project.
Excellent. Look forward to hearing more.
Okay, as part of these committee reports, I've got a suggestion, that I want on the minutes, to go to the town council, in order to, make our rules subjective. I think that, he's listening. Okay, I want to reduce the residential height limit, to 16 feet with a 24-foot lowest to highest, as a, provided under objective review. Under subjective review, that height limit would be increased, to 28 and 34, as it currently stands. Under objective design review, nothing over 1 story with an 11-foot plate height, and that the limit for floor area be less than 2,000 square feet would be an objective project. I want to make it clear that no tree removal, of a heritage tree would be allowed, and the grading would be less than 50 cubic yards. In addition, I believe, the ASCC should go through the design guidelines and objectify, everything that's said, in here. But what I just suggested would capture 99% of the issues.
I agree. It's important. It's just long overdue. Okay, what else are we doing? Minutes?
I think we have additional
What?
committee report.
Oh, committee. I thought I was the only one. Who else has?
I noticed a project that's on Westridge that has gate columns. I believe there's 4 or 6. Kind of drove by.
Oh.
And
I wrote
it's-
to one of you guys about that.
the
And
address, I
How did that
believe,
happen?
the address, I believe, is 1375-ish
1375 Westridge.
Westridge. It's wired for lights on the top of the columns, which is not what we've been doing. And I don't believe, I'd like to check to see what ASCC approved on the plans, because the as-built appear that they might not be aligned with the approved plans. And
there
I'd like
are
to get clarity.
Also other columns.
There's additional columns. I'd like to get clarity on that, please.
And how did that happen, that change?
I noticed that too. It seemed like there are some architectural details and some colors and materials that were not in compliance, with the ASCC, review and approval as well.
Perhaps maybe the building color,
It used to be Stonegate. It used to be on Stonegate.
perhaps. There's an entry now on Westridge.
Right.
And they have egress there, and I don't know the exact address, but I think it's
It
somewhere.
looked to me like was going to be lighting on top of the columns.
There is conduit and wires.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you say the address again, really quick?
I am going to guess it's 1370, 75, something.
The other side of the street is even.
I'm
Okay.
unsure what
So
must-
1375, it's a guess.
it may
I
be.
don't know.
So that's something we can look into, and that could be something we can send an inspector out just to make sure that they are building it as per the plans and what's approved as well. Something just because I don't know exactly what's out there.
I think what's different really is that I think there, it seems like there must have been some additional, approvals, beyond the ASCC approval. And that's what I think, what I'm hearing and, Lance's voice, is the issue is that, the construction plans may have gotten approved with something different, than what the ASCC, approved. So if you want to, have the inspector, look at it relative, to both the building permit, and, the ASCC approval, you could do that and get us a report.
I think those concrete columns should come out.
Well, let's
We didn't
get
approve
some
them.
facts. Let's get some facts and
They
just
wouldn't have been
verify.
approved.
No, well,
I agree. Let's just follow the data and the process, I think, out of fairness.
okay. Mary Ann, you want to say something very quickly?
Quickly, on that property, I know there was a separate fence permit and I didn't see ASCC was in the loop.
We see fence permits.
I don't think you saw that one.
Oh, we would.
You would know what it looks like.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other
Well, then if
reports?
that's found, then I'd like to look at our processes and close that so that we don't have this, I'm going to use this phrase, leakage on the plans and the permitting. It should continue the way we have done things and this carving off of pieces,
Okay,
because I don't think we're not expedient. I think we can be very expedient. So
we can.
I'd like to make sure we have the process
All right,
determined.
thank you. Any other committee reports? Anybody else go out to look at anything? No? Okay. So then that moves us to minutes. I looked at them. Anybody have any corrections, thoughts? Corrections, no? Can someone make a motion?
Move we approve as presented.
Second? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Minutes are approved.
One complaint on the packet again. Somehow I need to get the chapters back, so that we can get to pieces. Because right now, when I open it, in the browser, all I get, I have to scroll through 185 pages. And as I'm scrolling through it, it usually crashes.
Yes, crashes.
You're looking for an indexed PDF to chapters.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure how it was been done before, but I can look into that.
Yeah,
Okay.
when Sharon was doing the agendas, it was all chaptered, so you could go to, a project or a report. It made it a lot easier to read because otherwise it takes a long time to scroll, to get, or you have to guess what page it might be on and then scroll from there.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.